Okay, and we are now recording. Today is Sunday, June the 14th, 1998, and I'm home on summer vacation visiting with my mama, Patricia Frances Black Stratton. My name is Clifford James Stratton, the only good-looking Stratton guy in the whole family. And we're just going through some of Mom's pictures. We're going to just tell a few stories and identify a few people for posterity. This is what just happened to come up first. The lady in the middle is Petra, who was Atanasia's aunt. And Atanasia's aunt, Petra, married Hiram Stevens, and all the history has been all written up so many times in Tucson. The Petra is interesting because our mama was named Patricia, which is English version for the Spanish Petra. So our mama was named for this Petra right here, which was Atanasia's aunt, whom she loved very much. And this Petra was named by her grandmother Petra, who was a Lamanite from Central America. And so that's our Mayan connection. This is the Petra right here. The young lady on her left is Mama's great-grandma, right?
Yes.
Right, Mom? Mama's great-grandma, which was...
my mother's mother.
Her mother's mother, which is Margaret married the Treat. Margaret Frances...
Margaret Hughes Treat.
Margaret Hughes Treat. And then the lady on the right of the picture is Elizabeth Hughes. And so that is Aunt Petra with two of her nieces. And the one that we come through is the little girl on the left, which married into the Treat family, and that's our grandma, Margaret Black's grandmother, right there. Okay, this is Mama's grandma after she was married to Frank Treat. This is Margaret Hughes, daughter of Sam and Atanasia, Sam Hughes and Atanasia Santa Cruz Bohorquez. And she passed away when Grandma Black was 7 years old.
She died in childbirth.
She died in childbirth, and all of the children were then farmed out except Toady, a mother's mother, Margaret Glencar and Treat Black.
Not Black then.
After she got married. So this is my mother's grandmother. And she married this guy. This is Frank Treat. And we're going to show you different pictures of Frank Treat here right now.
Here's a picture of a picnic of our family. My father's car was his pride and joy. My aunt, we called her Aunt Sis. And there I am. And my
That's
aunt.
Mom as a baby. Isn't that, aren't you little?
Just kid-like with some on my face. And there's my Aunt Elizabeth, my grandfather Treat and his second wife Stella, my sister Betty, my mother and her sister Aunt Mabel. This picture is my sister and I with our grandfather Frank Treat. This picture was taken in the front yard on 600 West Maple. My mother, mostly my mother, planned this whole house. And this is our beautiful home on Maple Street. And I'm with my sister and my father and my grandfather. And my mother loved palm trees, but after that palm tree died, my father brought 2 trees home, little tiny twigs of trees, and they're still growing. Beautiful trees now in our front yard.
They're huge, gorgeous trees. Anybody that ever comes to Winslow, make sure you go see those trees. They are beautiful. And Grandpa brought them home and planted them one day. This is Mother when she's almost a teenager. And this is Mama's 12th birthday. She's going to tell us all about what happened. The people in this picture are, on the far left is Aunt Sis, and then standing up behind Mom is Aunt Liz. Mom's sitting down in the bathing suit. She lived in a bathing suit. She used to love to swim. And then she's got little Marguerite, her cousin, in front of her. And then there is Grandpa Treat. And then there's, next to Grandpa Treat on the right, is Clarence Bernhardt and Knox Corbett, who come from the Hughes family. Now Mom's going to tell us about her 12th birthday. This is our Mama on her 12th birthday.
These relatives drove down from Tucson to California, and I had been out swimming and came in, and there was a big birthday cake, and they had all come to visit my mom, but they told me that it was for my birthday.
And what were you doing in California?
Oh, we had spent the summer there at Venice, California. We had a beautiful little cabin just a block from the beach.
What were you doing there? Going to school for Aunt Betty?
Not when I was 12.
Just out partying, huh?
Yeah.
All right.
When we were older, we went to school there. Should I talk about that now?
That's okay. We're going to...
This is a picture of my sister and I on with my grandfather Treat. He loved horses, he owned the waterworks in Benson, Arizona. That's where this picture's taken. And the story is told that he had a brand new horse that it told my mother not to go near it. But of course she did. And she got on the horse, and the horse started bucking, and then he ran away with her, and she fell off the horse, and the horse disappeared. And when Grandpa came back, he wanted to know where his horse was. And Grandma had to tell him that she'd taken the horse.
and gone for a joyride. This is Greer, Arizona. This is Grandpa Treat. This is Greer, Arizona. And this is Grandpa Treat just after he had his stroke, or about the time he had his stroke. And you all know about Greer. We started going up there with Grandpa Treat, and this is Grandpa Treat was the first generation. Then there's my mom on the right. She was the second generation. And then I've been there every year since, and I'm the third generation. And my kids have been there. That's the fourth generation. And this year Marlene's going to bring Bethany up to Greer. So that'll be 5 generations at Greer. And Mom wants to tell a little story about this, and you all know where this campsite is. This is Benny Creek, the campsite right there that we've always been at, right below this, facing us, just down that big hill where you go to the water spigot, the natural spring. So that's where this is. Those of you that have been there know exactly where this is. And it was just over to the right of that where I got my testimony in the Book of Mormon when I was in high school. So just to the right of where those cars were parked back there. So Mama's going to tell the story now about Grandpa.
Grandpa and my father and my uncle Slim decided to go fishing. They got a little ways from shore in their boat, and remember they'd forgot their bait. So my Uncle Slim stood up in the boat capsized, and everybody on the shore said, "Go get Grandpa. He's had a stroke and he can't move part of his body." So everybody ran out and brought Grandpa in. But my mother remembered that my dad did not know how to swim, so she drove in the water and went out to the boat, and my dad's foot had been caught under the boat. She dived down several times and got him loose and brought him into shore, and she started giving orders. She told my sister and I, each of us, to take a leg and start pumping the water out of my dad. She told my sister to make her own road but go find a doctor. She told my Uncle Slim to hold my dad's head over and hang onto the tongue so he wouldn't swallow it. There were some camper men by, and she hollered at them to lift my dad up on a big rock so she could roll him back and forth, and the water was just gushing out of my dad. But they saved his life, and he was hospitalized for about 10 days up there. But it was quite an adventure for all of us.
If you want to know where this took place, Grandma Black showed me one time. There's 3 lakes there, as you know, and it's Bunch Lake. And where the boat ramp is in 1998, you go, as you're facing the lakes down on the boat ramp, you go about 80 to 90 yards to your right, and that's where they were, on the bank. And then you go out about 40 or 50 yards on that where the boat, that's where the boat capsized. That's on Bunch Lake at Greer. Okay, this is the family at Grandpa Treat's house in Benson, Arizona. And all those people on there, I'm not sure who they are, but Mama maybe can tell you. And then she can tell you a story about how Toady, or my grandma, took care, my mom's mother, took care of Grandpa.
This is when we were younger. This is my mother and her brother, my Aunt Sis, my grandfather, my dad, my Uncle Slim, and Stella, my grandfather's second wife.
And Uncle Slim is the one on the top right up here. Is that right? Is that
Yes.
Uncle Slim?
This is our home in Benson. Oh, what wonderful memories I have of this place. And this home still stands, and that was a big porch that went clear around the whole house, and a big old pomegranate tree on one side, and we'd climb up there. We had so much fun there. What was I
About how she used to give him a bath.
Oh, and as we got older, now this is when they were real young. But when we were, my sister and I were older, and we went back to visit Grandpa Treat, and he'd had a stroke, and my mother was taking care of him, and he was just too heavy for her to handle by herself. So in order to give him a bath, she'd wait till sundown and send us girls in the house, and she'd get him out on the porch and turn the hose on him. That was the only way she could handle him.
But it was Toady that took care of Grandpa.
Oh yeah, my mother.
For several years till
Yes,
he passed away.
My mother, and she brought him to Winslow. Then we went, one year summer we went up to Flagstaff and spent the summer up there with my mother taking care of my grandfather. And he came to Winslow and took care of him there. He was so nice. He was so good to my sister and I. Always bringing us treats and playing jokes on us. One time, my grandmother Stella gave him had some pie, and he took the pie and he was showing off, put the gravy on it and the mashed potatoes, and he just made a big mess, and Grandma made him eat it all.
And that Stella is the lady right down here, right below Uncle Slim. And where they used to give him the bath was right over here behind this tree right over here. That's where they used to give him the bath with the hose. That's where you give him the bath with the hose over here behind this tree, and that's Grandma, the second wife of Frank Treat.
I think those are vines on that.
Well, those are vines, not a tree. But that's where the hosing off used to take place, is right over there. And this is Grandpa Treat on the right, with my Grandpa Black, which is our mama's daddy, and then with our mama is the little cute one right there in the back with the fancy collar on her dress. That's an unusual collar, isn't it, Mama? That's kind of a funny looking collar.
It is for me.
Usually you were such a sports lady. And then there's Aunt Betty being timid, shy, and humble over on the left. And Mama wants to tell us, I've always loved reading and books, and many of us have. Carol Ann has an insatiable desire to read. My own kids just love to read, most of my kids. And I think we got a lot of our love for learning from Frank Treat. Mama's going to tell you about Frank Treat here.
He loved reading so well that he built himself a room behind his house in Benson for his reading room, his den. I don't remember what he called it. And he had a couch that is still, I'm looking at it now, it's sitting in my front bedroom, that he had out there when he wanted to lie down. And every wall was full of books, shelves and shelves of books. And my biggest treat when I'd go down there, he'd let me go into his special room and look at all of his books, and I'd spend hours and hours reading, going through his beautiful books. And I guess that's why I just love to read.
And by the way, that bed that's in there, when I got off my mission from Wales, my first night home when they picked me up at the airport there in Phoenix, they took me to Grandpa Black's house, and there's Grandpa Black right there. That's my Grandpa Black. And that was the bed I slept on. I didn't know it had all this history. I didn't know that it was in your Grandpa Treat's special reading building out back. And we thought it would be appropriate to conclude this segment on Mama's grandma, Frank Shrewsbury Treat, the father of her mother, Margaret Treat, who later became Margaret Treat Black. This is a picture of Frank Shrewsbury Treat when he was 20 months old. Doesn't he look precious? This is Mama's grandma when Grandpa. This is the little dress. In those days, everybody all the kids got dresses. This is Mama's grandpa when he was just a little teeny baby. This is Frank Shrewsbury Treat. And this is Mama's grandparents on the Black side. These are the parents of Elmer Hyman Black. This is Albert H. Black on the left, and Eliza Jane Morrison on the right. This is out of my life history. And Eliza Jane Morrison died in 1891. She had a baby in her arms, and she went outside to get some coal, and she slipped. In order to preserve the baby, she twisted around and fell on her back. And as a result of that fall in the coal shed, she passed away shortly thereafter, leaving Albert with a large family to raise. He then remarried, and this is the family that he remarried. The lady in the middle is his wife, and you can see Grandpa Black, the boy right in the middle on the bottom. That's Grandpa Black, or Grandpa Black.
These are pictures of my mother. The one that has the hair down is from her beautiful hair that she only cut once in her life. In the 20s, it was a style for everyone to have bobs, so she wanted to be in style and had her hair cut. And when she came home and my dad saw her haircut, he was so sad and made her. She had to promise him that she'd never cut her hair again. He loved her hair. Then the one on the top is when she was in.
That one's not on, just this one. Just that one's on.
Isn't she beautiful? She was such a sweet, beautiful.
I remember Grandma Black sitting there, and she used to see that hair, how long it is in that bun. It used to go all the way down almost to the floor. She'd sit down and she'd take her comb every morning and she'd comb it. 20 times or 50 times. She'd count the number of combs and she'd comb, starting from the crown of the head up here, and then she'd start combing down and she'd comb and she'd lift up the hair and comb 20 more times and lift up some more hair and comb 20 more times. Long, beautiful, beautiful, brownish, a little bit of a tint of a red and mostly brownish. And this is her hair right here. This is a lock that Mother has of her mama's hair. And so that's Margaret Glencairn Treat, who is Mama's mama. That's Mama's mama. And this is Mom's mom. This is my grandmother. The one over here on the far right, that is Margaret Treat. And this is her at college. It's now Northern Arizona University. At that time it was called, before that it was called the Teachers College, and before that it had another name altogether. And as we'll see in a minute, she was a cheerleader there. She was very, very popular. She was one of the, and you can actually go to this hall. This hall is still there on campus. Take a good look at that. I've driven by that hall and walked by that hall many, many a time going to work or going to the institute, the Elias Institute. So I can't remember the name of it, but that hall is still there on campus, and that's some of her college friends when she was going to college at what is now Northern Arizona University. Now, Mama's going to tell a story about how she met Grandpa when she was right there in that picture when she was that age. This is about age 20.
My mother and father met in Flagstaff. My mother was going to college. They ran around in the same crowd together, and that's how they started going together. And my father had a jewelry store in the back end of a drugstore in Flagstaff, and he had saved up his money and he bought a jewelry store in Carlsbad, New Mexico. So he proposed to my mom and asked her to go with him. And so she left college. She was just a few months before she was to graduate and become a teacher. And because of that, her dad, my grandfather, Frank Treat, didn't speak to her for 2 years because she didn't graduate from college and go on to teach school. But my mom and dad were married in Flagstaff, and the snow was almost above their heads. It was so deep. My mother had on real tight shoes that hurt her so bad. And then after they were married, they got her on the train, and on their way to Carlsbad, New Mexico, my dad wanted to stop in Winslow to meet an old friend of his that had a jewelry store here. When he came back from visiting his friend, he asked Mother if she wouldn't mind living in Winslow, that his friend had just talked him into buying his store instead of going on to Carlsbad. And so they bought the store in Winslow, and
That's how Mama ended up being born, when her family lived in Winslow, although she was born in San Francisco, because Grandma wanted to go over and get a doctor in San Francisco, but that's how the family got started in Winslow. And so here she is at about just before she met Grandpa Black and fell in love.
Thank you.
We have to back up a little bit. The last picture was when Grandma Black was about 20 or so. This is one of the earliest pictures we have of Grandma. This is when she was 18 years old. This is Grandma Margaret Treat, later to become Black, when she was 18 years old. And this is one other really extraordinary picture we found of Grandma Black, my Grandma Black.
TV on there.
The front page of my scrapbook.
This is out of the very front page of Mama's scrapbook, and this shows her mother at Flagstaff. See the snow, the pine trees with the leather sweater on. We're not sure whether that's her leather sweater, if she was a cheerleader, or whether that's some young man that she was dating owned that. In just a minute we'll show you Mama in her beautiful leather sweater from Winslow High School. This is Grandma Black. Okay, I want to show you this picture because this is Grandma with her 2 daughters. The good looking one on the left, of course, is our Mama, and Aunt Betty on the right. The reason why I want you to see this is because if you notice the house that they're sitting in front of, this is the house they lived in on 4th Street. And a few years ago, Mom and I went around and we took a whole day and we did nothing but just tape all the places where she and her parents lived and where her dad used to fix the old Studebaker underneath the big old elm tree, and just lots and lots of stories on that tape. And that's what the house looked like that you'll see in the other tape that I did. That's what the house looked like when our Mama was there as a little girl. So that's Grandma Black with her 2 daughters in front of their house on 4th Street. Alright, this is out of my life history book, and this also shows Grandma Black at Flagstaff, and shows you how she dressed. See the picture in the middle? That's the picture in the middle. And notice the nice bracelet that she has on. Notice that treat chin that she has. Uncle Chuck has got that beautiful treat chin that you can see Grandma has right there. And since I can't just pass it up, that little girl right there in the middle, that's my Mama, when she was probably just through junior high school, going into high school. And this is one of Mama's most favorite pictures. This is a picture of her mama, Margaret Glencairn Treat Black, and her sister, Aunt Betty. Isn't Aunt Betty a beautiful lady? That's Aunt Betty in her prime. Beautiful, beautiful lady. Let me zoom up on that a little bit.
Her name's Margaret Elizabeth.
Who Aunt Betty is?
Mm-hmm.
There she is at the higher mag. Mama says her name is Margaret Elizabeth Black. Isn't she pretty?
This is a picture taken when my aunt sister celebrated her 50th year working for the United States Post Office, and it's a retirement party given in her honor. Coming to the party from California was her brother Frank, who's next to her. Shall I say who's here?
Okay. All right, now I'm going to zoom up on these, and I'll tell you who each of these people are. See that skinny girl right out front there? Those first 3 skinny girls right there. 3 of the 4. That first one you'll recognize. The girl I used to call Duty Land when I was a little kid. That's Aunt Carol. That's my sister Carol Ann. And next to her is Mama. And then next to her is that lady. Who's the lady?
Bailey.
Mrs. Bailey, who's a friend of the family. And then Megs. And then Grandma. Aren't they a good-looking bunch of women, huh? Beautiful family picture. Carol Ann, Mom, and then Megs, and then Grandma. And then over here, we get Uncle Frank, who's always known as brother. Aunt Sister was always known as sister by all the brothers and sisters. And Elizabeth is just barely hiding behind Uncle Frank. And so those are the 3 brothers. That's the 2 sisters and the brother that came. And here's a really fun picture when we have Megs and Caroline when they were very, very young. This is a family group picture. I'll go up and show you who these people are. That's Uncle Ted and Aunt Mabel. On the left, there's Aunt Sis, you can't miss her, and Mr. Hobson, right? She was married to.
Ted and Peggy.
Ted and Peggy, and then Aunt Sis.
And Walt Lazar.
And Walt Lazar is the tall guy in the back. And then there's Grandpa with the really bright tie on. That's Grandpa Black. And then Doc, who married Aunt Mabel, who's sitting right down in front of him. And then there's Aunt Liz. And there's Marguerite, who is the daughter of Aunt Sis. And on the front row we have Grandma in the middle, Grandma Black in the middle. And there's Mom. And there's Bill Treat. There's Bill Treat there.
Ted Treat.
Ted Treat. We did his temple work a long time ago. There's Ted Treat. And next to Mom, if you look on Mom's lap, you see a little teeny bald head with a little bottle or a little toy of some kind. Almost has hair. That's Meg's. And see the little boy right there in the middle with all the long blonde hair? That's yours truly. They could have called me Toady too, because that's why they called Grandma Black Toady, because she had blonde hair. And I had that same blonde, curly, toady hair. And there's Carol Ann with all the curls. See Carol Ann with all the curls? Isn't she a pretty little girl? And you know what? We all stayed gorgeous. That's the miracle of the whole thing. I'm sure that Carol Ann and Megs would agree with me. I think that's just about it on this tape.
These are the twins.
And these are the twins. Yeah, see, twins are in our family. That's the twins that belong to who? Uncle
Ted
and Peggy up there. See how they have twins? Well, the little girl's sitting right next to me, and also between the twins, she had twins named Joe and Sean. So ladies, twins run in the family. We are a twinning family. Notice that there was only one of me though, and then they broke the mold. For better or for worse. Okay, I'm just going to kind of hold this picture according to my little clock up there. I'm just about out of tape, so let's let you see our mama and our grandma and her babies until we run out of tape, until the record quits. Ages of her life, and we want to preserve these for posterity. We're going to send 1 million of these tapes out so everybody will have one. This is Grandma Black, Toady, when she was very, very young. You can tell that that's Toady in the middle with the blonde hair, and then on her left is Aunt Sister. She has the characteristic treat cheeks. See that, Aunt Sister? And on Grandma Black's right is Aunt Mabel. The only sister that isn't in there is Aunt Elizabeth. And so that is Aunt Sister, our grandma, in most of your cases it's your great-grandma, Black, and then Mabel. Don't know how this is going to turn out, but this is our Grandma Black, and she is a little older. She's still an adolescent. So this is the next age of picture. And this is one of my favorite pictures of my grandma. This is Grandma Black when she was 6 years old. Look at that thick, beautiful hair. Beautiful, beautiful little girl. And this is Grandma Black, Margaret Glencairn Treat, when she's about 13 years old. My grandma when she's 13, now her hair has turned to brown. That was the natural color, right? It was brown, Mom, most of her life. Her hair was brown.
Kind of brownish, reddish with
a little red tinge every now and then. So she went from brown to
blonde to brown.
From blonde to brown. When she's a teenager now, she's got brown hair. And this is Grandma Black in high school on a horse with one of her many boyfriends. She loved horses. This is Grandma in high school, or thereabouts, with one of her boyfriends.
This is my mother, Margaret Treat Black.
Now.
Staying in her home in Glendale, Arizona. My mother was a beautiful gardener. Her home in Winslow was the most beautiful home in town because of the beautiful garden. She worked so hard. And now, when she came to Glendale, her backyard and front yard were just as beautiful as, and wherever she was, she made it better. She planted and had beautiful garden. Please, you take it.
And I remember, this is the house that Carolina and Meigs and I remember, because when Meigs and I were living down in Tempe together, when Meigs met Gerald and fell madly in love, this is the house where she took Uncle Gerald to meet Grandma and Grandpa Black, and this is where I took Marcia to meet Grandma and Grandpa Black. And right there, Grandma, or I guess Grandpa's taking the picture, right to his left is a big, beautiful fig tree. And I remember I used to go by to see Grandma and Grandpa, not only just to see them, but also because Grandma always had some really nice cakes in the morning. And I always got a nice piece of her cake. And then I'd always go outside, if it was the right time of the year, and get a ton of figs.
And pecans.
And he also had pecans out there, and he had grapes out there, and grapefruit he grew.
Peaches.
And he had peaches, Mom says.
Lemons.
And lemons. What I remember the most is the figs. I have never tasted such beautiful figs as came out of that garden. And if Grandma was just to look a little bit to her right, there's a huge fig tree right there. Beautiful, beautiful garden. Okay, I'm going to talk about this one because it's getting kind of emotional around here. This is Grandma, and this is the dress that Mama and Aunt Betty picked for Grandma to be buried in. And she's interred here in the Winslow Cemetery next to her husband, and we encourage all the family to come by and visit their graves. It's right next to where Dad's buried right now, where Dad Stratton's buried. So come out and have some sweet memories of Grandma Black.
And Betty and her husband are buried there too.
Betty and her husband are buried there too. That's kind of the Black Stratton Cemetery out there, and it's in Winslow, Arizona. Can't miss it. I've been out there many times. And Mama wants to close with this one on her mama. This is Grandma Black as a little girl. Isn't that a beautiful picture? This is Grandma Black. See the toady head? Can't miss it. And those beautiful eyes. Beautiful eyes and beautiful toady head. That's my Grandma Black. And here's Mama to say a little bit about her mama.
I was looking at that beautiful hair. I can't, except for Clifford James, there's not one child or grandchild that had my mother's beautiful blonde hair. My mother was so wonderful to me. She was always my friend and gave me guidance. And she always was surprising me with clothes, beautiful clothes that she'd picked out, or a beautiful bedroom of mine that she had fixed up for me. She loved to do things for her children. She was so wonderful. I'll never ever have a better friend or anyone who loved me as much as my mother did. I love her so.
And now we move in to the person whom we honor today, and that is our mama, or our grandma, or great-grandma, as the case may be, Patricia Frances Black Stratton. Got to get all those names in there. And this is our mama. This is her favorite picture of herself.
In 1940.
In 1940. I asked her to pick of any picture that she might want to start out her portion of this life history with, and this is the picture that she chose. This is our mama.